WordPress without borders. So, since I've gotten here to Basel, a number of you have asked me why I wasn't at WordCamp Europe in Italy last year. And you guys all had a great time, but it was indeed quite unusual for me to not be there and not hang out with all of you. I enjoyed doing that, and I also helped co-found this event 12 years ago. And even though Switzerland is my home, I live a bit further away these days. So this is the cool WordPress community map. I tried to get a good crop of Europe, didn't work out too well, that's okay. So I'm sorry if I've missed you or cut you out. But this is me out east, east of Europe, in Kharkiv, Ukraine. And before we continue, maybe a bit more context. This talk dives into the important role open source has played in the humanitarian challenges the world has faced over the last 20 years. When we've all been busy building websites, plugins, themes, it's not always easy to zoom out and see the biggest picture possible. But that's what we're going to try and do over the next 20 minutes. So back to Kharkiv. This is my base. Kharkiv is also known as the unbreakable city for its brave people and resiliency. And using this as my base, my team and I operate in the east and all along the front to do various humanitarian missions. Some of you may already know that I do the frontline evacuation of dogs. But around this time last year, when WordCamp Europe was happening in Italy, something else was happening, and it was very busy. It was a very busy time for our charity, which meant that instead of coming here, or in Torino, I decided to stay on mission. And the reason is that a few weeks before, on May 10th, around 3 o'clock in the morning, Russia decided to launch a large and new offensive in the north of Kharkiv. And these kind of events happen very quickly. We responded immediately. So on the first day, we were on the left side, or underneath the red area, on the left side, running evacuations. And then on the second day and beyond, we were on the right side, underneath the red area there, in the city of Volchansk, which loosely translates to Wolf City. We have a lot of video footage from those days and weeks that followed, so I want to share some of those impressions from photographers that we had along with us, from media and other places, as well as my own GoPro that I wear pretty often. So these are very dynamic environments. The zero line is always shifting. There's a lot of munitions being used, be it glide bombs, artillery, grads. It can get quite loud. But above all, it does happen so fast. You have to react quickly. As police was constantly in touch with military, we took one with and to maintain radio contact and just stay updated. So even though we primarily evacuate animals, because of the urgency here, we also evacuated some people and just tried to do the best job we could. Even in this one place where a glide bomb had come in, we had evacuated a grandmother and her daughter just a week before from that exact position. This is 2 glide bombs coming in. So we'll come back to these days in May, but for now we'll take a trip down memory lane. WordPress was born May 27th, 2003. Over 22 years ago, we just celebrated our birthday, which is great, and had its first commit. For those who don't know, a commit is a piece of small updated code that is sent to a project which has a certain function. Maybe it's an enhancement, it's a bug fix, but it's a great way to allow multiple people to collaborate and contribute to a project over time and do so effectively. And like any project, WordPress started with one commit. But no one could have predicted that WordPress would go on to become 43% of the web, which is truly amazing. At the same time WordPress was born, and completely unrelated to WordPress, something else was going on in the world. And there was this huge escalating conflict that was moving very quickly in Sudan. And at the time, the government had launched this scorched earth campaign, and the result was the death of hundreds of thousands of people. Back then, there weren't really many open source tools in this environment. We couldn't harness the power of many to alleviate the pain of the people in Sudan at the time. Later, in 2010, a single man lit himself on fire. This sparked a revolution, and like a single domino falling, toppled regimes and redrew the maps of North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. This is known as the Arab Spring. Different than Sudan, however, open source made its entrance here. As we had many discussions, debates, and dissidents that were able to find their way online. And they were doing that through blogging and other tools, sharing ideas, telling the world what's happening, and that is genuinely fascinating. And thanks to WordPress and other tools, this idea of digital democratizing publishing was finding its beginning. 2015, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake swept through Nepal in roughly 50 seconds. And it wasn't just homes that crumbled, it was centuries of culture that got reduced to dust. And that left a nation with 9,000 dead, and ultimately a lot of souls shattered. After the devastation, however, there was this global open movement that came to life. People were leveraging satellite imagery from afar, from their homes, like places like in Switzerland, and contributing to identify damaged areas. This helped first responders, aid agencies, and others to do their work more effectively and in a more timely manner. As a side note, WordPress only played a small role in something like this. However, our WordPress community in Nepal is very large. They work through the aftershocks because they also have to make a living, and today still run some of the largest WordCamps in the world today. This is resiliency. 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a global pandemic, and this affected all our lives. It created an unprecedented global health crisis and plunged us in a deep sense of uncertainty. In response, again, the open source ethos grew. Genomic data was being exchanged between scientists. We had these open source, open data tracking dashboards. We were sharing the 3D printing files openly for scarce medical equipment. Truly amazing work. And this collaborative spirit, this idea of freely accessible information, once again proved that this open approach that we have is a force multiplier. As you can see, over these 20 years, open source has steadily become critical operational software when a crisis is around, and ultimately plays a role in how the world is shaped throughout that. Coming back to my little part of the world, in northern Kharkiv, when this all kicked off at the beginning of May last year, many of us responded. I ultimately think we did good work, and we saved a lot of lives. But that's not always enough. So. You see, Volchansk, before the full-scale invasion, had 17,000 people. And in the 1-2 weeks into our work, notice the bridge here and the buildings in the background. Around this time, population reduced to 300. And this was later on. You can see the bridge, again, on the left, and then the buildings. Population, 0. Tragic. And I know Volchansk well enough to know exactly where I'm standing here. There's a school out of the picture on the left right here. These are places that we're deeply connected to, and the losses are irreparable. On the digital front, it's not always easy to fundraise for this kind of work. Sometimes technology even stands in the way of what we're doing. proprietary solutions are quick to deplatform you and de-risk their position. For example, the popular fundraising platform Buy Me a Coffee, which many Ukrainians use to take money or take donations, no longer supports payouts to Ukraine. The popular platform Patreon has, in the past, removed some Ukrainian charities. It does not allow one of my charities to be on there because I support the armed forces. In situations like this, you don't always get what you want or hope for. And this reminds me of a quote I hear often enough in the East. We don't rise to our expectations, but fall to our level of training. Keep this in mind as I go through the next part. So this is a history or a data of how many WordPress sites are added every quarter, or new WordPress sites come online every quarter. Since 2004, so a lot of data. And this data set is specifically for the top 1 million websites, so where we like to do business because these are traditionally better clients and all that kind of good stuff. And as you can see, this number of new sites collapsed after the pandemic started. The pandemic there was a lot of remote working, there was a lot of money that came into the market, Shopify exploded, a lot of other platforms just grew exponentially. And yeah, there was shinier options available with nice marketing and great budgets, and that's tough, right? Like, in some ways, to me at least, this is no surprise, as we have zero product marketing, but we hoped for better, right? We had higher expectations. However, looking at the number of new Ukrainian sites being added every quarter, you see for one nation that this meant a lot. It was more about falling to that high starting level we provide. And let me tell you that this is quite impressive because you have a country's economy that is contracting. There's not much money, and if there is any money, it's going towards armed forces. And registering a .ua domain is, frankly speaking, quite difficult. So I'm amazed, I'm surprised, but it also gave me confidence in what we do, all of us here. And metaphorically speaking, thinking of the previous quote, we fell to our level of training. This level is the highest starting point any CMS in the world provides. Free or open source, doesn't matter. This is the best one out there today. Today, the core project has 60,000 commits, or nearing the 60,000 commits, I'm sorry, and you can extend it with another 60,000 plugins. And my friends, if you look at this chart, this is what digital resiliency looks like. To support this point, last year, Forbes magazine in Ukraine released a list of the top 50 charities. I went through each one. It turns out that half of them are on WordPress. And this represents organizations that in 1 year or 12 months have collected over $500 million in donations. This is incredible to me. You have 50% on WordPress of these 50, and out of the 50, 80% are using open source. Sometimes we're just too caught up in our day-to-day, in our own little worlds, or that of the industry, to forget that bigger picture or the biggest picture. The one where we lend a hand in saving lives, defending freedom, and building community. How many of you have contribute anything at all? Have ever helped with the WordPress project? I know it's a lot of you. Yeah, it is a lot of you. I want to give you a better idea of what your work has done. I don't want to show you screenshots of websites. I don't want to show you tech stacks or page speed insight scores. Nobody cares about that stuff. That's just a means to an end. I want to show you what your contributions genuinely support in terms of their outcomes. And to that effect, here are some of the charities that are on WordPress today. East SOS, operating out of East Ukraine, doing critical work at the front lines on WordPress. To Ukraine with Love, a charity that helps Ukrainians who have lost everything, their home, to receive a new home. They are too on WordPress. Superhumans, a charity that provides prosthetics and rehabilitation to military and volunteers who have lost limbs in this war. A good acquaintance of mine is currently there, as he does the same work I do, but he lost an arm and a leg. And without that support, it would be really, really hard. Superhumans is also on WordPress. A bit lighter, Repair Together. Like to organize basically techno parties in the middle of the day to clean up destroyed homes and then rebuild some, and then also have some food and party and do other things, and then just do it all over again. Repair Together is like all the other charities on WordPress. Caritas. You may have heard of this charity before. They have a very large chapter inside of Ukraine, doing amazing work for many, many people in terms of shelter, food, water, the absolute basic needs of a human. They too are on WordPress. Save Ukraine. During the full scale, children have gone missing, ended up in Russia, ended up in occupied territories. This charity brings them back. And they too are on WordPress. And lastly, my charity. And I showed you some tough videos before, maybe, of what was happening in Volchansk. But some of these dogs come from Volchansk, and this is them with their new families, their new homes, and we too are on WordPress. And that is thanks to all of you. You should all be incredibly proud of your work. I also want this dog, but he's gone. Super, super cute. So I've shown you the data. I've shown you the real outcomes, the real human outcomes. I know it's heavy, but this is where your work goes and it contributes. And it's tremendous. It's really tremendous. I also have a small confession to make. As a younger, I'm still young, but a younger, cynical version of me, I used to think the slogan, think global, act local, was a bit wishy-washy and just a bit too hopeful. But with situations like the one in Volchansk, you quickly realize there's just not many of us around. There's a lot of news crews. There's New York Times, BBC's there, Sky News is there with their whole camera crew and everything. They're amplifying this previously unknown town onto the global stage. Politicians and famous news anchors are all talking about it, but you kind of realize there's not many people in Volchansk itself doing this work. On that first day, I think there was one mechanized battalion in the region, special operations mobilized very quickly, local police geared up, and yeah, maybe there was like 40 or 50 of us humanitarians. And we're not big charities. We're not like one charity going there. You know, we're like another 10 charities or 15 charities. They're all like 2-3 people with many, many cars that every morning or whatever meet at a gas station to talk about what we're going to do next. So when this offensive started overnight, I'm proud that, you know, everyone on my team in the morning just grabbed their gear, got in a car. There were no excuses. There was no hesitation. We all just answered the call. Open source feels similar in that way. We don't look corporate. We don't have these conferences with plenty of suits. We don't have to go to middle management to get approval for what we want to do. We just act. We commit that line of code. We translate that piece of text. We design that icon. Whatever that unit may be. And these individual acts or units of contribution will not only never go without users, they will empower other communities to produce more units, such as my charity. And not counting the cases where we were able to reunite dogs with their owners, such as this day coming out of Volchansk, we have evacuated, sterilized, chipped, dewormed, vaccinated, provided medical attention, re-socialized, found new homes, and then delivered to the doorstep of the new home and new family for 1,275 dogs to today. Thank you. Is it possible that by us using WordPress, we were able to do more? You know, say achieve these 1,275 dogs, rehomings. Do we achieve that maybe instead of 1,274? Yeah, absolutely. I believe it. And I know what you're thinking. There's some random WordPress dog running around Ukraine right now. I like that idea. And look, we're just a small charity. We're a drop in the ocean of thousands and hundreds of thousands of other small organizations who they just don't show up on the radar, but they use your software. The true impact of WordPress will never be able to be measured through economic surveys, annual recurring revenue, or any of that stuff. It's through the countless lives we change for the better. And as an open source project, that should always be our North Star. Bless you. If it's 2,000 years ago, 20 years ago, today, tomorrow, it doesn't really matter. The world will always experience some level of conflict, catastrophe, disease. I'm an optimist. I always hope for better, but kind of like the quote before, try to follow my level of training. And as a species, in that regard, we will always continue fighting for freedom, trying to work against suffering. And today, the democratization and decentralization of knowledge and communication during a new crisis is always immediately supported by open source projects such as WordPress, such as Signal, Tor, OpenStreetMaps, and more. Sudan in 2003 may have been a different outcome. Maybe not a completely different outcome, but we would have helped. We would have done something then. So today, we help provide this incredible day one starting point when things are tough. And that is thanks to your decision to repeatedly act, to commit, to contribute. And these repeated acts done together is what also makes us unbreakable. And while I'm proud to be able to call you all my colleagues, I kind of stand in front of you today almost as a client, right, who actively uses your work. I need you. My charities need you. Ukraine needs you. And the world needs you. Thank you.